Jayda InStitches show. Valentine's Day is fast approaching, and one of the nicest things you can do for someone is bring them a bottle of their favorite wine or effervescent beverage. And everything looks fancier when it's presented in a pretty gift bag. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a simple wine bottle bag, and we're going to use 24/7 cotton by Lion Brand yarns. We'd like to thank Lion Brand for sponsoring today's video, and we'll put a link to lionbrand.com in the description box down below. When you're there, you can check out all the different colors that 24/7 cotton comes in, and there's a lot of them. In fact, there's so many, I had actual trouble deciding which colors I wanted to use for today's project. You can make our sleek and simple wine bottle bag completely plain, add an optional applique, maybe hang a little something off of the handle like another applique or a card. It's entirely up to you. 24/7 cotton is a 100% mercerized cotton yarn. So in addition to being strong and washable, it's got a really pretty sheen to it, and it doesn't have a bunch of those little flyaway fluffy fibery bits because it's a nice tight weave. It's smooth, it's slick, it runs through your fingers really quickly. I find it actually helps me crochet even faster than I normally do. So let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, we'll head on over to the craft table, and we'll stitch it up together.
Easily find all of our crochet tutorials. Type youtube.com/Jayda InStitches into your web browser and we'll see you there.
In order to make our wine bottle bags, we're using 24/7 cotton by Lion Brand. This is a size 4 medium weight yarn. It's 100% cotton, and this gorgeous color is called magenta. There's about 100 grams or 186 yards in each ball. You need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, a measuring tape is handy too because you want to check your gauge. And the hook we're using today is a 4.5mm hook. This is also known as a 7 in the US and the UK. You can leave your bag completely plain, or you can dress it up and add a really cute heart applique. We have a separate tutorial for this simple little heart applique. You'll find that link in the description box down below. We'll also pin a comment. If you add an applique, be sure to use the same kind of yarn. I used 24/7 cotton in crisp white for this, and leave a long tail on your applique when you're finished so that you can sew it to your wine bottle bag. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. We're going to begin with a cinch circle. So we're going to take our yarn, create a loop, grab the yarn, pick up a loop, and chain 1, and of course that secures our circle. And we want to use a cinch circle so we have a nice, tight, strong center at the bottom of our wine bottle bag. That chain 1 is enough to let us start row 1. We're going to single crochet 8 stitches, so 8 single crochet into that cinch circle. Make sure you're crocheting over top of that short tail so that you can cinch the circle shut when you're done. Once you have 8 single crochet all worked into that little cinch circle, grab the short tail, pull tight, and that cinches up the circle nice and tight. We are working in the round for this project, so we are not joining our rows. We are simply working the first stitch of each row into what was the first stitch of the row before, so working in the round. I'm going to work over top of my short tail, but of course you can put it to the back and weave it in later. That first stitch is always a little on the tight side, so wiggle your hook in there. This is where we're going to start row 2. 2 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So at the end of row 1 we had 8 single crochet, and at the end of row 2 we will have 16 single crochet. If you find keeping track of the beginning of each row a little difficult, you can always put a stitch marker on the first stitch of each row, so that way you know when you get back all the way around that you've come up against the first stitch of the row. Then just move it so that you put it on the first stitch of the next row, and so on. It's an easy way to kind of visually keep track of where you are. At the end of row 2, you should have 16 stitches. We're going to continue increasing. So our first stitch of row 3 is worked into what was the first stitch of row 2. So if you're using a stitch marker, work the first stitch of row 1, or I should say of row 3, and then just move your stitch marker to mark that stitch, and we'll continue. So we begin with 2 stitches, 2 single crochet in the first stitch, and single crochet once into the stitch after that. So our little repeater pattern is 2, 1, 2, 1 all the way around. 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the set, and then a single crochet into the next stitch to follow it. You're going to repeat that little 2, 1 pattern 8 times in total, and we'll be up to 24 stitches at the end of row 3. At the end of row 3, we're up to 24 stitches all the way around. We're going to continue increasing. The new pattern is 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the set, followed by a single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1 all the way around. By the end of row 4, we'll be up to 32 stitches. At the end of row 4, we have 32 stitches. We're going to continue to increase. The new increase pattern is 2 single crochet worked into the first stitch of the set, followed by a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. You're going to repeat that 8 times in total, and we'll be up to 40 single crochet stitches all the way around by the end of row 5. At the end of row 5, we're up to 40 stitches. We are still increasing. For the next row, we're going to begin with 2 single crochet worked into the first stitch of the set, followed by a single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. So 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. You're going to repeat that little pattern 8 times in total all the way around, and we'll be up to 48 stitches at the end of row 6. At the end of row 6, we should have 48 stitches all the way around. We are, however, going to single crochet into each of the next stitches. So this isn't going to change your stitch count. You'll still have 48 stitches, but doing this will help even up the circle and therefore the bottom of our wine bottle bag. So single crochet into each of those next 6 stitches so that any way you measure the circumference of your circle, you'll wind up with an even place to measure. So it'll look the same from all sides. Now we're going to check our gauge. So we've single crocheted into the next 6 stitches. Your last stitch will be in alignment with that little bump where row 1 turns into row 2. And any way you measure it across, so try to go through right through the middle of your circle, you should have anywhere between 3¼ and 3½ inches in circumference. And if you're going to measure that metrically, it's around 8½ centimeters. A little less, a little more is just fine. Most of us loosen up as we are crocheting sort of the easy single crochet in the round without any increasing or decreasing. So if you are anywhere in that ballpark right now, your wine bottle bag will end up being just a little larger, which is great because we're going for a semi-snug fit for our wine bottles. If your circle doesn't lay completely flat or it wants to wiggle or ripple a little bit, don't worry, that's very normal, and it will flatten out obviously once you've got a bottle sitting in it. Next, we're going to create a row of posts. A post row of single crochet will turn the outside edge of our single crochet to sit down. It will tighten up a little bit, but don't worry, additional crochet will loosen things up again. But it's going to create a nice flat bottom that our bag can sit on, and it just creates a nice finish all the way around. So this is how we single crochet around the inside or the back of a post of a stitch. You take your hook and you slip it from back to front through the next stitch, and then back out from front to back through the stitch next to that. So you've got a little kind of V and the loops running over the top of your hook, and under here you see the post of the stitch is popped up on your hook. Then you just slowly bring your hook out with a loop on it and single crochet as normal. That first one is always a little awkward as you kind of go from regular single crochet to single crochet around the post, but the rest of them get easier. So you go into the next stitch, which was the stitch you went out of. So you come in through the next stitch, go back out through the stitch next to that. That pops the post up on your hook, pull up a loop, and single crochet. Let's do it again. Hook comes back through the next stitch, back out through the stitch after that, it pops up the post, and you very gently single crochet. I love this yarn. It is so smooth and easy to work with, and so working post stitches is a lot easier than if you're trying to use a grabby kind of yarn. You're just going to take your time and single crochet around the post of each of these stitches all the way around. You'll still have 48 single crochets by the end, and as you can see, it's turning that edge so that it sits down, and the rest of our bag is going to be worked off of the top of these stitches. So you're going to have a really neat flat ridge on the bottom of your wine bag. Once you've single crocheted around the post of all 48 stitches in that row, it'll look something like this. And it might still be a bit wiggly, it may feel like it tightened up a little bit, but don't worry about it. Now is the easy part. We are just going to single crochet around and around and around. So you're going to single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Every row will have 48 stitches in it. You can kind of turn your brain off for a bit. We're going to be single crocheting around and around and around until our little wine bottle bag measures approximately 8 inches or 20 centimeters from the top of this little ridge to the top of our last row of just plain old single crochet. So I'm going to let you single crochet in every row for a little while and then pop back in with me and we'll do a little measuring check. I've been crocheting around and around and around for a total of 19 rows so far. So we've got 6 rows in our bottom. Row 7 is our post row, this one here. So here's row 8 all the way up to row 19 so far. And that measures almost 3 inches, a little bit under 3 inches, about, oops, make sure I've got that lined up there at the top edge. About 7 centimeters. So from the top edge to the top or the top of the post row there, or the bottom of row 8, it's about 7 centimeters. So altogether, that's where you should be at by the time you've gotten up to about row 19. Most importantly, it should be shaped into a bit of a cup or a bowl shape. If you find rows 8, 9, 10, you know, the first couple rows after your post stitch that your bag was still flattening out, don't worry, that's totally normal, but certainly by now it should have turned itself into a bowl shape. We are going to crochet for about 36 rows in total, the upper part. So about row 43. So this doesn't have to be exact. What we're going for is 20 centimeters or 8 inches in height. So I'll be working to about row 43, 42, 43. Like I said, doesn't really matter. You want to keep your measuring tape handy because you want a wine bottle bag that when sitting measures about 20 centimeters or 8 inches in height. I have completed row 42, so that's 6 across the bottom. Row 7 is our post row, and rows 8 to 42, I'm going to measure that. And it should come out to roughly 8 inches, and it does. So from top to bottom of bag, I'm at 8 inches or 20 centimeters. I'll just turn that over. 20 centimeters. If you're a little over, that's perfectly fine, but and if you're not quite at 20 centimeters or 8 inches, then add a couple more rows. So the actual row count doesn't matter too much. What we're really going for here is a specific measurement. So 20 centimeters or 8 inches from top to bottom is what we want. Once you're ready to work the handle row, so again, doesn't really matter what row you're at. For me, this is row 42. The next row will be your handle row. And it's pretty simple. So if you're using a stitch marker, this will be where your marker's sitting. You should be in alignment with that little tiny bump down here at the bottom. So you see where our post row kind of turned into the bottom of our bag. So this little bump, that's a good place to align all of your row starts and finishes. So if you're not using a stitch marker, then you want to look for that little bump and line it up there. And here we go for the handle row. We're all going to single crochet into each of the next 8 stitches. So we've single crocheted into the first 8 stitches of our handle row. For me, that's row 43. Now we're going to chain 8. So chain 8, and without twisting it, you're now going to skip 8 stitches along the edge of your bag. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I always like to count twice just to make sure. And into the next stitch, so this is stitch number 8, into the 9th stitch, or the stitch right after that one, you're going to single crochet. So you're going to crochet into that stitch right after the 8 skipped stitches. And there's the start of your handle, handle number 1. You're going to single crochet into the next 15, so plus the one you just single crocheted into here, that'll be 16 stitches between row handle spaces. So just to recap, there's the split for handle number 1, and now you should have 16 single crochets. And now you're going to chain 8. So 8 chains, and just like handle number 1, we skip 8 for handle number 2. There's my 8th chain. I'm going to single crochet into the next stitch. So I'm chain 8, skip 8. Make sure you've got 8 skipped stitches there. Single crochet into the stitch right after that, and then the next 7. So you've already single crocheted into 1, single crochet into the next 7 stitches, and that will finish the row. At the end of that handle row, for me that was row 43, you should now have 2 splits sitting opposite each other. That's the break for your handles. They should be relatively opposite. There should be 16 single crochet stitches in between each handle. And because we've chained 8 and skipped 8, we maintained a 48 stitch count. So you should still have 48 stitches all the way around. We're back to plain old single crochet now. You're going to single crochet in every single stitch and each chain all the way around. So when you get to your chains, make sure you single crochet in each of those 8 chains that cross those open areas to maintain your 48 stitch count. And you're just going to do 2 rows of plain old single crochet. After 2 more rows of straight single crochet, you should see a nice little handle forming there. If you're content with those little handles, you can slip stitch into the next stitch, fasten off, and weave in your tail. I like a slightly thicker handle. I think it has sort of a cute aesthetic. So I'm going to add another row or 2, and of course this part is up to you. If you like the thickness of that handle, you're done. If you want to add a couple more rows, then you can go ahead and do that now. Same old thing, just keep single crocheting in each stitch all the way around, and you'll still have 48 stitches at the end of each row. Altogether, I did 3 rows of single crochet after the split for my handle. So this little row of loops here is the row 43, or the handle row. And then you'll see there is 1, 2, 3 rows of single crochet on top of that. So that is row 43, 44, 45, and 46 for me. I like the thickness of those handles. I think that's really cute. I am back around again at the back of my bag where that little switch in the row is, so I know that's the very back of my bag. I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch to close off all that crochet, fasten off, there we go. And I'm going to take a moment to weave my tail in back and forth across some of those stitches on the inside of my bag. Once you've got your tails all woven in, then it's time to decide if you want to decorate it or not. Once again, if you want to add this cute little granny square style heart applique. We've got a link for it in the description box down below. When you make up an applique, be sure to use the same yarn and the same hook size as the rest of your project so everything sizes together nicely. And when you're done with the applique, leave a nice long tail because that's what you're going to sew it to your project with. So I'm just going to flatten my bag a little bit so that both of my little handles are kind of evenly spaced so that I can sew this little guy down to about the middle front of my bag. You can do this in one of two ways. You can pin it into place or hold it like I'm going to. And if you don't want your stitches to show through to the back, then all you need to do is pick up a loop. I'm just going to get one here on my needle. So you pick up a loop on the bag, so your needle is not going through the fabric, it's just going through sort of the loop on top of a stitch on that bag. And then you're going to go through the whole stitch of your applique. And if you're going to do it like me, where you don't pin it down, even if you do pin it, just stop every once in a while to make sure that it hasn't moved on you. And I like to keep my fingers on the inside of the bag so that I know I'm not accidentally sewing through the entire bag. And that's all you're going to do. You're just going to sort of work your way all the way around your applique, pausing every so often to make sure that it hasn't moved on you and it's still sitting nice and straight. And as you crochet, you can kind of pinch and pull out your little applique so that you make sure you keep that consistent shape throughout. Once you've sewn it on all the way around, bring your yarn back out just to the front of your little applique or to the side, depending on its shape. Make a small knot. This is just to sort of make sure that your sewing doesn't come undone. So small a knot as possible. And then I'm just going to bring it under here. So sort of tug your knot out of the road so that it's not really that visible, and then you can weave your tail in underneath a handful of the stitches on your actual applique. And I recommend this because the same color yarn will be woven in with the same color yarn. So white in white or pink in pink or whatever you're doing, and that way your little tail won't show, either should your little knot, and you don't have to do too much weaving in back and forth here. Maybe back and forth once or twice. This is not in a terribly busy part of our little wine bag. So just through the stitches, don't pull too tight, and then you can trim any excess. There we go. And there we go, a very pretty wine bottle bag. Sleek, simple, you can use it plain, you can dress it up a little bit, you can hang a little something off the handle. I love that it has handles. I'm a big proponent of handles, especially built-in ones, when you're using bags because it's strong and wine bottles can get pretty heavy. That is such a cute little gift. I'm very pleased with this. Once again, we'd like to thank Lion Brand Yarns for sponsoring today's video. We used the 24/7 cotton and I love it. I'll definitely be using more of this down the road. And don't forget, if you want to find our little applique tutorial, we have a link for that in the description box down below. We'll pin a comment to it too. We hope you enjoyed making this very pretty wine bottle bag along with us today. And we'll see you soon here on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.